Hey, hello, and welcome to Michael's Minty Music for today. Today we review the Beatles' 1965 album, Help. It's pretty good. Probably the best of their sort of early 60s work, in my opinion. This is the track listing, and these are the tracks added to my playlist, 11 out of 14, so most of them here. This album is definitely really good, although there are a handful of tracks here which are pretty boring and a little repetitive. Some of the songs here are really innovative and interesting, but most of them are kind of standard early 60s pop tunes that you would have heard on any of their earlier albums. Still, the standout tracks really do stand out. Stuff like Yesterday and Help are really good, and they almost sound a little bit out of place here. The flow is pretty decent. They start off really strongly, as always, but then side 1 transitions into slower stuff pretty smoothly. Side 2 is a sort of consistent mid-speed with a bit of a speed up with I've Just Seen a Face to go into Yesterday. I'm not sure why they put Dizzy Miss Lizzy after Yesterday. They probably should have just cut that one entirely and ended it on a slow note, but I guess if they wanted to keep it upbeat, that's really the only way to do that. The covers here don't really help the album out, in my opinion. It's only the first and last tracks on side 2, and they both feel a little bit out of place. Act Naturally works well, but it doesn't really start off the album strongly, and Dizzy Miss Lizzy is pretty silly after Yesterday, and it doesn't really end the album in a way that makes a whole lot of sense. Still, even though most of the songs are sort of all sound the same, sort of 60s bubble pop, they're still pretty high quality, most of them being still quite good, especially on side 1, which I think is probably better than side 2 overall. There were 2 singles released before the album, Ticket to Ride and the opening title track, Help, which were both big hits on this album, along with one of their most famous songs, Yesterday, track 6 on side 2, so that's track 13 overall. My favorite track here is probably that opener, Help. It's really good, although it can go with any of the big tracks here. Help, Ticket to Ride, and Yesterday are all kind of a clear step above everything else, and they're the big ones here, and they're all pretty similar in quality. Yesterday is probably the best if you're going to go from a quality perspective. I ranked this album 9th out of the 13 Beatles albums, so in the bottom half here. This album is probably the best out of their early work, and I put it above both of their 1964 and both of their 1963 albums. The big hits here are pretty much all better than the big hits on their previous albums, and the overall quality doesn't decrease at all, so it's all pretty much upside. Still, the general quality on Help can't really compete with much of the rest of their catalog in terms of a song-by-song quality basis or variety of sound. This album has a bit of variety, but not on the level of something like Magical Mystery Tour or Yellow Submarine has kind of a bit more going on. Plus, the overall quality just shot up really high with Rubber Soul and Revolver that they blew past Help pretty quickly. Additionally, it should be no surprise that this is not my favorite from 1965, as the Beatles also released Rubber Soul in that year, and I think that one is a significant improvement from Help, so that one takes it for my favorite from 1965. Thank you for watching. Next up is the Beths' most recent album, 2022's Expert in a Dying Field. I think it'll be good. I've already heard the title track, and I liked it a lot, so should be a pretty good review there, so stay tuned for that, and as always, stay minty.